prior meeting.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Calling to order the December 18th meeting of the Newton School Committee. Hi to everyone in the school committee chamber and to everyone joining us from home. Right off the gate, I would like to read a statement on behalf of the school committee. Reaching a collective bargaining agreement takes months of time, hard work, and diligence. Since October of last year, the school committee has been bargaining in good faith with the Newton Teachers Association. Please do hold your comments. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Thank you. Since October, the school committee has been bargaining in good faith with the Newton Teachers Association to settle a contract that provides competitive salaries and benefits and that is financially responsible. Despite several months of productive discussions, including with the assistance of a state-appointed mediator, we have yet to reach a mutually satisfactory agreement. Last week, the Newton Teachers Association announced their intention to issue a vote of no confidence in the school committee and the mayor. A vote of no confidence is neither uncommon nor unexpected at this juncture in negotiations. Indeed, nearly identical votes have happened in several other districts at similar stages in the collective bargaining process. Throughout the course of our bargaining, the school committee and the union have made steady progress. We have reached tentative agreements around individual proposals which support our students, our staff, and our district. As a whole, the school committee has confidence in our continued good faith efforts that we will result in a sustainable contract with the Newton Teachers Association. We have never wavered from our commitment to reach agreement. We have deep respect and appreciation for the professionalism of our educators, and we want to ensure that the Newton Public Schools preserves the ability to deliver a quality education to our students and maintain a highly skilled and talented workforce. With that, we will now turn our attention to public comment. Public comment is a period reserved for members of the public to address the school committee and for committee members to directly hear your concerns and perspective. We do not respond in this context. However, we seriously consider your feedback. Scheduled conversations are available in alternative formats. Members of the public joining us in person must please refrain from applause, outbursts, or disruptions. Tonight, we have several requests for public comment, and we have only a certain amount of reserved time. I will be able to recognize more speakers if I don't have to pause for disruptions for applause. Remote speakers tonight, please ensure that Zoom name matches the name that you use to request to speak. That's how we will identify you. In-person speakers, I will call your name from the posted sign-up sheet. When called, remote speakers will be able to unmute, state name and address, and take up to 3 minutes to share your concerns with the committee. In-person speakers, when called, please come to the table in front of the school committee and use the microphone to state your name, your address before beginning your remarks. Both groups of public commenters will receive a 30-second verbal warning from our Vice Chair, Kathy Shields, before your time expires. Our first public commenter will be a remote speaker, Dan Evans. I do. Thanks, Lisa.
Hello, Dan Evans, 24 Maynard Street. 7 years ago, we were fortunate enough to have moved to the city of Newton. This was only after many years of saving, which allowed us to afford a down payment for a home. If we moved into the same home now, we could not afford it. We made the decision to live in Newton because of the reputation of NPS. Over the 7 years, we have met wonderfully amazing and talented people who work for NPS. Each of them has made a tireless effort to ensure our children are provided with the best care and education. What they don't have and what we, the taxpayers, want for them is a fair contract. I urge you to stop wasting time and free the cash. On that same note, I've got a few sizzling questions related to the budget. Precisely how much money has been budgeted for outside counsel related to NTA contract negotiations? Precisely how much money has been spent to date on outside counsel related to NTA contract negotiations? Are the lawyers' fees coming from a school budget or the city's budget more generally? Where can the answers to these questions be found publicly? Finally, what's more important than investing in the education of our children? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next public commenter will be Sue Cohen, followed by Alona Lucky. And I apologize for names.
Good evening. Sue Cohen, 124 Mount Vernon Street, West Newton. Thank you for this opportunity. Last week, a friend who is the spouse of an NPS employee shared how their year has been going. When they were through, I gave them a hug and asked if I could share what I had heard with the school committee. Here is what they told me. We have been struggling this year more than ever in so many ways. Most importantly, mental health-wise, my partner is stressed to the point of shutting down. They are tired, sad, and frustrated daily. They have been sick more. They have taken a lot of days off, and they are never rested. They have stopped going to the gym. They take naps after school and work until midnight just to keep up with the grading and lesson plans. Financially, we have needed to get help from family. We've also taken a loan to pay our taxes and credit cards. My medical costs have risen astronomically. While my medication costs are somewhat lower, the copays have doubled for my providers. We used to bring home 2 salaries that afforded us the ability to pay our bills and have extra for savings. Not anymore. I have to pick which bills to pay each month. The educators are burnt out from fighting and doing their job simultaneously. This is not sustainable, both mentally and financially. This is not okay on so many levels. To me, this is what financial insecurity looks like. So what is financial insecurity? According to PricewaterhouseCoopers 2023 Employee Financial Wellness Survey, 60% of full-time employees are stressed about their finances, which triggers financial insecurity. 53% say they are most worried about their expenses increasing, basically everything costing more. Of those with credit card debt, 44% say they struggle to make minimum payments each month. PwC also found that 59% of full-time employees reported that their compensation is not keeping up with the rising cost of living expenses. PwC also discovered that financial stress is impacting employees' health and well-being areas from mental health to sleep to self-esteem, which contributes to low morale among employees. And 1 in 3 full-time employees says that money worries have negatively impacted their productivity at work. Lastly, 73% of financially stressed employees say they will change jobs if another employer cares more about their financial well-being. Just a note, an employer's 2% COLA today does not scream, "I care about your financial well-being." The financial stress of potentially earning significantly less for the next few years is taking its toll on our educators. The stress of potentially losing prep time is taking its toll. The stress of not having enough classroom aid support is taking its toll. The stress of not having enough social workers to support families in crisis is taking its toll. If I were sitting in one of your seats, I would be extremely concerned as to what the Newton Public Schools is going to look like moving forward. Or should I say, moving backward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alana Lukey, 663 East 7th Street in Boston. I'm a behavior analyst and I have worked in Newton for almost 6 years. In 4 days, I'll be leaving the district. Here's what happened. My family and I moved to Mass in 2017 and we chose Newton for its superior schools. Once we moved, I was determined to work at NPS. Every time a BCBA job opened, I applied. I was so excited and so proud to be part of the district. I felt like I had finally landed my dream job. And in the beginning, it was challenging, exciting, and so rewarding to be part of the team of professionals. I was blown away by the caliber of the special educators in the district. Each one was so smart, well-trained, experienced, and above all, dedicated. I felt challenged every day to be better, to bring value to the collaborative process of helping our students succeed. because it's an important job, not to be taken lightly. My job is to help teach students critical adaptive skills from academic to personal care to social emotional domains, and these kids deserve to equally access all that Newton has to offer. And then 2020, COVID disrupted the learning of all students. All educators, and in particular special educators in Unit C, went above and beyond to learn new systems and new technologies. Special education teams came into the buildings to serve the most vulnerable students. Myself and many others hand-delivered materials to the homes of each special education student because that's what the learners needed and deserved. But of course, students now are needier than ever. They missed out on so many social and academic growth, so much social and academic growth during school closure. Trying to bridge the gaps and fill in deficits is demanding and exhausting, but ultimately so important because our kids need and deserve this care. But let's not be disingenuous about it. It comes at a price. Educators come home exhausted and stressed out, worried for their students, and trying to do the impossible, fill in the gaps while continuing to keep their current learning on track. I constantly felt an overwhelming feeling of defeat, the slow motion panic of just not doing enough. For a BCBA, caseloads have exploded, student needs have exploded, and trying to fill these gaps is so important to provide our students, our struggling learners, to access what they need. But educators have needs too. We need more support. We cannot continue at this pace. Morale is the lowest I've experienced in my 6 years. To quote another dedicated educator, "We take care of your babies and we're drowning." In my more bitter moments, I feel like the mayor and school committee have won. They've burned out an experienced, dedicated, loyal BCBA, and now they can hire a brand new one and probably pay them half as much. Since the contract is all about saving money, that's a win, right? But then I remember it's not really about me at all, and the students are the ones who pay the price. I'm devastated to be moving on. I thought I had found a permanent home in NPS. I feel like I'm leaving my fellow colleagues in the trenches, and it feels like an abandonment of students I know and love. But I need to put myself and family first and find another sustainable and healthy way to serve vulnerable learners. Sadly, it will not be at Newton.
Thank you. Up next, we have David LeBron. Thank you. I'm sorry, are you speaking on behalf of David LeBron? Okay, sure.
Ryan Normandin, again, 4 Air Road, Boston. So, we've talked before about how the school committee and the mayor have the ability to click a button and they can send an email to the entire district. The teachers don't have that ability. And so what I want to emphasize tonight to the community is that you should not fall for the school committee's smoke and mirrors again. Because last night they sent out an email that, oh, there's all of this money. We're going to do a great job. Maybe we'll even settle the contract tomorrow. And when I came in today for negotiations, I got this, which is just the kind of same garbage we've been getting. It's just a bunch of twos. Our mediator came back and gave that to us. Someone in the room pointed out that it seems the school committee is living in la la land. And the mediator said, yes, they are. And no district in the state would settle for what the school committee is offering us. It is insulting. It is absurd. And it's just destructive, not only to the students and not to the educators, but they're sabotaging themselves as well. We're all excited about this new superintendent that we have here. The average lifespan of a superintendent in a district in Massachusetts is 5 years. She's spending her first year dealing with all of this. You guys think she's going to stick around? I'm sure. And, after this meeting, she'll say, no, I'm going to stick around. Really. She's going to get offers from other places. And who would not be tempted by it in a district where you have to deal with all of this because you guys will not negotiate with us in good faith? It's insane. And then, again, too, in Fuller's email, right? Mayor Fuller says, oh, the city council has twice hesitated to use these overlay surplus funds, the funds that she so just really wants to give to the schools, apparently. The city council rejected her plan twice because it didn't give money to the schools in the first year or the second year, or I think the third year, Sec 2 and 3, it gave a teeny bit of money. But the schools need money now. They don't need it 8 years down the road. Our kids are not going to wait for this amount of time. They need the money now. They need the support now. And one other thing is, at the last meeting, Kathy, you were really upset with the glib rhetoric of us saying that you don't care. I don't know what to say, because all I can do to judge whether people care or not is based on their actions, based on the budget, based on the things that you do to try to, respect people. And when the school committee has repeatedly for how many months now, over a year, spat on our faces and then says, no, if we say we care, you can ignore the spit. It's okay. We really do care. That is not caring. So I don't know what else to say. I just hope the city of Newton knows that the school committee, the numbers they are offering are insane. They're insulting. They're not realistic. No district in the state would settle for these. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Our kids are suffering. Our educators are suffering. And yeah, thanks. I guess.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ann Fagan.
Ann Fagan, 57 North Avenue, Natick. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Unit C Special Educator, Ainger Elementary for 10 years, parent of a high schooler in a nearby district. On behalf of Newton teachers, on the 20th of November, 4 bright, inspired Newton High School seniors pleaded, you'll remember, for contract resolution, respect, a dignified wage, and fair treatment. Thank you, Ashan, Evan, Boston, and Taban, for your support and encouragement. NPS core values are innovation, respect, responsibility, and excellence. The epitome of these were evident through each student's eloquence. Hearing their stories of teachers' support over the years stirred in me a flood of memories after a decade supporting our students in elementary. We make sure our kindergartners know they are safe and belong as they acclimate to classroom routines and learn right from wrong, celebrating identity with projects all about me and my family. They learn to raise their hand, express themselves, and form community. In addition to math concepts, first graders learn to make and keep friends, phonemic awareness, understanding their feelings, and regulating them. Now, some can take the perspective of others, which helps with problem solving, and learn how to be inclusive community members. Kindness keeps evolving. Expertise and strong opinions help writers in second grade make their point, match problems, and with reactions, come to see another's viewpoint. Learning about the culture of the Wampanoag empowers third graders to compare language, lifestyles, and traditions for hours. Understanding magnets and forces lets them contemplate the world around them. With newly found independence, they ask for the things they need and find them. Once they rise to fourth grade, a new reading and writing stamina fuels personal expression, leading to discussions of a distinct caliber. Students craft their voice as writers and construct Washington, D.C. monuments through the Civil Rights Unit. We explore the principles of social justice. Our school seniors learn about the water cycle, building bridges and mastering fractions. And with the UDHR, now know about human rights and upstander actions. Through this lens, we teach the colonization of North America and the fight that ensued for independence. At last, fifth graders celebrate Color Day and prepare for middle school ascendance. Understandably, a 14-month negotiation process has eroded educators' morale and driven a wedge between administrators and staff. But for what rationale? Respectfully, Dr. Nolan, committee members, and Madame Mayor, the sea of blue t-shirts you see before you implores that you be fair, uphold our core values, respect Newton educators, collaborate to deliver a fair contract, show your faith in our excellence and yours.
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Julie McLaughlin. Julie McLaughlin.
Good evening. My name is Julie McLaughlin, and I live at 56 Davis Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm a parent of 2 NPS students. I have an 8th grader at Day Middle School and a senior at Newton North. While not an educator myself, I became involved with the Parent Educator Collaborative 3 years ago when I observed that teachers often aren't given a voice despite their firsthand knowledge of how challenges like COVID, curriculum, and physical infrastructure affect their students. Almost 5 months ago, I addressed this committee pleading with you, Mayor Fuller, to contribute a portion of free cash funds to NPS to allow the school committee to meet educators' concerns. Real concerns about staffing of social workers, providing a living wage for Unit C employees who have to work 2 or sometimes 3 jobs to make ends meet, and a reasonable COLA for all employees given the inflation that we're all experiencing. But nothing was done. Then even more money was found in the city's reserves, up to $40 million. Still, nothing was done for this year. I have watched every school committee meeting as teachers, students, and other parents have emotionally shared their stories and pleaded with you as well. It wasn't until September 27th that I heard the school committee formally issue a budget resolution requesting more money from the city. I thought finally something is going to happen, but it didn't. And yet here we are almost 5 months later, and Mayor Fuller, you have finally announced you will provide more money to NPS. So I'm here tonight to ask the school committee to immediately use this money to settle the NTA contract and meet their requests. But I'm also here to ask that we as a city start to value our educators and their commitment to our students. Last night, I was at a social gathering with someone who had worked in education policy. When I shared the current state of contract negotiations here, he commented that while it's important to pay educators well, it's also not why they go into teaching. I think that's probably the sentiment of many here in Newton. Given the national teacher shortage, I'm not sure that outlook necessarily holds anymore. We're all seeing what happens when a system squeezes its employees. We're seeing how hard it is to find a PCP as doctors have started to go concierge or choose to specialize. We're seeing how long it takes to have a prescription filled at retail pharmacies as they're understaffed. What's going to happen when we can't find qualified teachers? I'd like to suggest we shift our mindset instead to showing how much we as a city value having the very best educators. I'm delighted the district has hired Dr. Nolan given her former experience. As Dr. Nolan has begun to do, let's give our educators a seat at the table when they express how the system is not allowing them to perform at the highest levels. Let's really listen to their perspective, as we can't possibly fully understand some of the challenges they have faced in their classrooms since COVID. And let's provide compensation that allows them to choose teaching over other careers in private industry. Let's not go through this again every 3 years. Thank you.
Next, we have Ali Frank.
Ali Frankie, 21 Mossman Street, parent and taxpayer. It's time to reflect on 2023 and resolve to do better in 2024. I've identified these educator evaluation areas for your attention: professional culture and collaboration, family and community engagement, communication, judgment. Like Mayor Fuller, I'm a twin mom. This experience has enabled me to fine-tune my mediation skills. My twins are 8 now, so I know what it looks like when 2 parties really dig in their heels, stand their ground, and absolutely refuse to let the other side get what they want. I see when the most important thing is no longer to get what you want, but to make sure that the other party doesn't get what they want. I know my style of mediation looks and sounds very different from your current experience. I aim to facilitate a collaborative conversation between people who look each other in the eye and really listen and respond respectfully. I want everyone to consider others' needs and how their actions impact our family as a whole. These are the words I sometimes use at home. I need you to see that your commitment to this conflict isn't serving you and it's hurting our family. I have a few friends and neighbors who are also in support of settling the NTA contract as soon as possible. These are their words. Christina Abley, Emmons Street, grew up in Newton, now a homeowner and taxpayer here. We stayed in Newton for the schools. Teachers and students need this funding. Bill and Aaron Blanchfield, 9 Mossman Street, parents at Horace Mann and Newton North, bought our home 15 years ago, specifically to raise our family utilizing Newton schools. Emily Wadsworth, mother of 2, Horace Mann District, 110 North Street. My husband and I grew up in Newton and attended the public schools. After we had our first son, we worked hard to get our family back to Newton for the school system. However, it's clear Newton is just riding on the coattails of their longstanding good reputation without actually investing in the future. Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller, how do you expect Newton to continue to attract qualified educators to the city of Newton moving forward? What motivated, talented teacher would consider coming to our city knowing they won't have the tools, support, or salary to survive in their position?
You have 30 seconds.
Are you willing to both jeopardize our children's learning while destroying the reputation of your city's education system? The people who teach our children deserve a fair contract and competitive salaries. Pay these teachers for the hard work they put in every day at the schools. Pay them for the countless unpaid hours they put in every evening, weekend, and summer vacation. Recognize the importance they have in shaping our future generations and preparing these children for the multitude of challenges that will be coming to rest upon their shoulders as they move from students to participating members of society. Mayor Fuller, it's
Your
time to
time
stop
is up.
paying your
Thank you
lawyers,
very much.
start paying our teachers. Thank you.
Despite the numerous applause, we do have room for one more speaker, Mike Zillis.
Hi, I'm Mike Zillis. I live at 39 Nonantum Street in Newton, and I'm a 27-year employee of the Newton Public Schools and a 13-year president of the Newton Teachers Association. I have never been in negotiations that have gone like these. The level of animosity, the level of conflict, the level of tension, the level of dissimulation is just appalling. And I'm also, there's so much I could say. I think the thing that I find most appalling is not just the way teachers and educators are being disrespected, but the way kids are being put into the middle of this fray. We have had 2 budget crises in 2 years after the real crisis of the pandemic. The schools have been grossly underfunded. 3.5% increase in the allocation every year is grossly inadequate. These crises, where there was a $4 to $5 million shortfall, came when the mayor was realizing $29 million surpluses because she under budgeted her revenues and over budgeted her expenses. Right now, she's sitting on $55 million, and our students do not have what they need. Those students have been used as a pawn in an effort to beat down the Newton Teachers Association and the 2,000 members that we represent. We're here saying we will not absorb the costs of inflation for the Newton Public Schools, because that's what you're asking us to do. You're asking us to take a 10% wage cut. And you've created 2 false budget crises to establish the precedent that the Newton Public Schools, that the city doesn't have the money. Those $55 million that you have at your disposal, you can spend. You have every liberty, except for you would not be upholding, you would not be doing what the bondholders want. You would be doing what the citizens, the students, and the educators who work in Newton need you to do. You need to get off the pile of cash, put it in the operating budget where it belongs, not as one-time funding, and spend it for this and give it to the schools so that they have adequate funds to run the system. There is money available. You cannot run $29 million surpluses and then have budget crises in the school after a pandemic. You're harming the students, the educators. You are despoiling the Newton Public Schools. Thank you.
Hold your applause. At this time, our public comment period is now closed. This time, our public comment period is now closed. I thank all who spoke. We very much appreciate hearing your perspective. For those who are leaving, please file out quietly. Thank you. And we'll pause here a moment for that to happen. All right, so let's move on to our consent agenda. Tonight we have for consideration approval of the draft minutes from December 4th, approval of the Newton North International Field Trip to Nigeria as detailed in the memo from Superintendent Nolan, approval of the FY25 NPS budget guidelines, approval of grants and donations as detailed in two memos from Amy Mistro, Director of Business Operations, for an IDEA grant, the donation of 2 soccer nets to Williams School, and a donation from Cradles to Crayons. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? No? Seeing no one, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda? Go ahead, Paul.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Emily. So we have a motion and a second. We'll now do a roll call vote. Ward 1 is not present. Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Remember your mic.
Yes.
Thanks, Sunping. Ward 4, yes. Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 8 is not present, and Mayor Fuller.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Up next, we have our superintendent update. And I'll turn to Superintendent Anna Nolan.
Okay, so I have two-part update this evening. The first is a follow-up from 2 sets of information requests made by members on the 11/20 and 12/4 school committee meetings. So in that, there were specific asks, first about pandemic impacts, budget over time, caseloads for guidance psychologists, social workers, and changes over the past 5 years to those caseloads. Answer to the question that I believe Emily asked is sort of like what's changed in the last 5 years in terms of sort of high level answer, but also day to day current caseloads. Those are listed by level. In addition to the industry standards for caseload levels and regional caseloads. There was also some requests from Rajiv about human resources, which upon further discussion with him, he said, don't need answers to it, just want you to be thinking about it when you're tracking information in the future. So I memorialized those pieces here. And there was requests for information about substitutes used at the high schools each day. Answer is 0 subs at the high school. There have been 3 hired at South this week. And how many classes have been canceled on average each day at both high schools? Approximately 30 classes per school per day. So obviously, as you know from our HR presentation, we have increased our sub pool dramatically, but they have not traditionally been used at the high school. We do have a negotiation item that's been tentatively agreed to prior to mediation about additional pay for staff who might serve as substitute instructors when their colleagues are out. Most districts do that. So that's something that there's some agreement among the union and administration on. So that's just a high level update. If there are any follow-up questions here, I'm happy to answer them.
Go ahead, Anping.
I just want to say thank you very much for follow up with these questions. And I think you're setting a very good precedent in the future, because I recall in the past years when we asked questions, there was not clear follow-up. Sometime probably they provide, sometime not. But this time, put it in writing, that's very helpful, especially we have those numbers. You have to review carefully if you want to understand our situation. And I think some numbers are very critical to understand the current challenges we have, especially like high school, 30 staff absent, and then what's the sub teachers available, and that's really a good education for us to understand what school is facing and what's the task we need to, to do better in the future. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments? No?
Okay, update part 2 is since our last meeting, just some updates for you. I just want to give a shout out to Lev Smirnov, grade 4, his 90-second video reading a poem that he wrote, which was, he's a student at Memorial Spalding. And I actually had the benefit of running into him at Memorial Spalding last week. And I felt like I was a fangirl there because this poem for such a young person, I mean, it's really worth the public taking a look at it. This was the culminating performance task for Module 1 of our new EL literacy program. Also loved seeing that. And he also gives an artist statement about what inspired him to write this book, which is about riding his bike. And there's great puns used about writing about his bike and riding his bike. And it's just really terrific. So I encourage everyone to see that. The next portion is just a reminder to the public and to the committee that there's a whole slew of reports coming your way in the spring, and you have the calendar for when those reports will become available to you and when we will have the meetings to discuss them. And those meetings are designed to help us make determinations about next steps with space and long-range planning. And I just wanted to elevate them because there's been some questions from the public about when are these things happening and how can we get involved. So the public has the full calendar for the discussion of these items. I attended my first cultural days at South High School. It was Disability Awareness Day, and a panel of alumni and current students with lived disabilities spoke about their experiences, their successes, their challenges. And my favorite part was, what advice would you give to your younger self and other high school students? And it was an extremely enriching display. We have published all of the cultural days that we know of upcoming. Remember, students run these, so sometimes there's more organic things that develop over the year or in response to events in the world. And so we try to support our high school students in developing these days and the leadership skills it takes to run them. So they're all listed here, and we sent the full roster to families last week in my email communication. And speaking of communication, I just want to particularly share with the public that we have been doing some new communication features. So every Tuesday we have Terrific Tuesdays, and on all our social media, we're highlighting creative, innovative, and exciting work of students and teachers in the schools. And then on Wednesday, we're doing Did You Know Wednesdays, highlighting different aspects of the district related to how schools have changed in the past decades, which contributes to the complexity of the average classroom in Newton. You've heard some details from teachers this evening. I'm trying to elevate that to the community so people understand what is it really like to be a teacher in Newton and what are the challenges and the assets of the school system right now. It also showcases a focus on data and the analysis that staff are doing to show differences over time and to celebrate aspects of the district as well. And then finally, we have Staff Feature Fridays. We have some tremendous staff members, and we want to highlight the special work of those staff across the district. So you'll hear about people doing special things, and also just the regular work of being an educator. That's very special. So we're sharing what they're doing. I just want to remind the public that we're holding 2 open profile of a graduate seminars upcoming. These are for anyone in the community to attend. One January 17th. 2024 at North Auditorium from 6 to 8:30. And then the very next night, January 18th, one at South Auditorium, 6 to 8:30. These are future focused, future careers, the future of our students kinds of discussion with our collaborator who's helping us on the profile of a graduate. While we wait to settle the contract so our staff can join us for the creative creation of our profile of a graduate, this is the backdrop to that. What are the careers that students will be engaging in 10, 20 years from now? And how does that impact how we educate students now? So that's a really exciting seminar. some of it's pretty mind blowing. So I encourage you to come, especially if you signed up to be on the committee. We'd love to see you there. But it's open to anyone, students, families, community members, business folks in town. We'd love to see anyone there. Sown to Grow is a social emotional learning tool. It's been featured on WGBH with our Brown Middle School recently, but it's being used by all our middle schools. And your memo includes a dashboard sample that teachers across the middle schools can use after a pulse check is given to students to see how they're doing. The idea here is for teachers to be able to understand if there's anybody they have to check in with who's not having such an amazing start to the class or the school day. And it allows counselors to triage which students are in the most acute need of services. So hearing some really positive feedback about that. Also helpful when having parent conferences, we can share with families, well, we're seeing these trends with your students' self-reflection on their emotional status and their mental health. And then finally, just wanted people to know that we do formal suicide screenings within the schools, and those are commencing. Direct letters are sent to parents and families whose children are affected by these screenings. And of course, parents have control over whether students participate or not, but it really does help us make sure that we're not missing any signs in young people that might lead them to unhealthy behaviors to harm themselves. So all of that is happening in the last 2 weeks, and many, many more things, but those are the highlights.
Thank you very much, Anna. Any questions for Anna about something she shared in the update? Go ahead, Kathy.
Not so much a question, Dr. Nolan, more comment on the Sown to Grow utility. Just from the parents' perspective, I find that I've started having conversations with my middle schooler about what the prompts are and how she responded. Nice. And I feel like it's a good jumping off point because often, at least in my experience, your middle schooler might not volunteer a lot of things about their inner emotional state, but that these prompts are a good way to, somebody else has already done the work for you of starting the conversation. So it's interesting to ask your kid what they answered and to have a talk about it.
Oh, that's great.
I found that really helpful.
I love hearing that. It's reaching the dinner table. That's great. That's good.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Continuing on to our action items and discussion updates. Our first order of business tonight is a brief negotiations update presented by Kathy Shields, our co-chair of the negotiating subcommittee.
So hello, everyone. As you may have known from our posted schedule, we had another mediation session this evening with the NTA that was organized by our state-appointed mediator. Going into today, the NTA dramatically increased their COLA demands and also reinstated numerous proposals that they had withdrawn over the last several months. That's not typically how negotiations go. Typically, parties reach agreement rather than get farther apart. Nonetheless, in response to some very good news that we have finally gotten some additional funding from the city, the school committee has announced both through, our superintendent announced over the weekend that we were going to be using that money in a number of important ways. One of the areas in which we're going to be using the money is to respond to needs that the NTA has identified throughout our negotiating sessions as important priorities for them and for the staff. Those needs include additional social workers and mental health supports for our students, reducing high school class sizes, and improving coordinated prep time for our elementary school teachers. In addition, the school committee has increased the COLA proposals it made to all NTA units using these new funds that are now available to us. And just so there's no confusion, I'll go through with you what those proposals are. So for units A, B, and E, we have in the first year of the contract, 2.25% COLA for people who are stepping, who, by the way, get about an average 4% annual increase. So this 2.25 is on top of that. And for people who are on the top step, 2.75. In year 2 of the contract, for people stepping, 2.25. For people on the top step, 2.75. And in the third year of the contract, for people who are stepping, 2.75, and people on the top step, 3.25. Now, our units C and D are structured a little bit differently and have some unique differences. So our unit C proposal, unlike the unit A, B, and E proposals, where we've offered a higher COLA to those on the top step, we heard the union that they emphasize and think it is more important to offer a higher COLA to the people at the bottom levels of our Unit C salary schedule. So we are, for our Unit C salary COLA proposals, for those stepping in the first year of the contract are 2.5%. For those on the top step, where, by the way, our top step salary is well above all of our surrounding districts, the COLA percentage offered is 2%. In year 2 of the contract, for those stepping, 2.5%. For those on the top step, 2%. And in year 3 of the contract, 3%, both for those stepping and those on the top step. Unit D, which is our ISS substitutes, is slightly different. We have, as part of contract negotiations, offered significant changes to the salary schedule in the first year of the contract. And there's less of a difference between those stepping and on the top step. So for Unit D, there is no split in our COLA offers between stepping and non-stepping individuals. And so our offer for year 1 is 2.25%. In year 2, 2.25%. And in year 3, 3%. And I want to emphasize that unlike what you heard in public comment, those average COLA percentages are average when you consider all of our surrounding districts. Those COLA percentages keep us where we are in terms of competitiveness, given all of our surrounding districts. I think the other thing I wanted to remind folks of, and this was not new from this mediation session, but I think it bears repeating, is that in our last mediation session, the school committee agreed to the NTA's request that we drop the bottom 2 steps from our Unit C salary schedule, effectively raising significantly the incoming wage for our Unit C paraprofessionals. That is something that we value, that the NTA had asked us to do, and that we have agreed to do. So this use of the new funding from the city, which we very much appreciate, spends that money in a way both that should be able to settle this contract and that provides important resources congruent with the NTA's priorities of improving our students' social and emotional health, reducing their class sizes to improve academic excellence, and to improve preparation time in a coordinated fashion for our elementary schoolers. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions from the members, questions and or comments? So I guess I will surface one question, which you've addressed, but this was something we did hear during public comment, and I think it's important for folks to have clarity around the accuracy of the information. So one of the things we heard tonight talked about, said that no district in the state would settle for the numbers that we have on the table in our current proposals. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think it's really important, again, that there's accurate information that's out there.
Sure. So we've posted on our website And we keep updating as we get new and updated information. We've posted the salary schedules of our 24 surrounding districts. And we've also posted, I believe, information about COLAs that have been negotiated in other districts that cover both the preceding fiscal year and fiscal years going into the future. And if you look at the COLA percentages that are that make up our current offer, those COLA percentages are very much in line with the COLA percentages that the vast majority of other districts are agreeing to. So they are not outliers. I think that statement at public comment was just erroneous. If you look at our salary scale and these COLA percentages on top of them, we would maintain pretty much exactly where we are in terms of comparisons in salaries to 24 close by and comparable districts.
And for those districts that do have outlier COLAs on the table or that have in their contracts, what can you characterize in terms of their salaries in comparison to Newton's salaries currently?
Sure. So in a couple of those districts are chasing Newton's salary schedules. So their higher COLA percentages are being applied on top of much lower salary tables, such that Newton's educators are still better off than those educators in other districts. In at least one other district that settled fairly recently, large COLA percentages essentially bought more time in that district's school day. But so increasing the length of the school day, therefore increasing the educators' work week and work year. And they paid for that with additional salary. So that's just not something that's on the table here. So you can't really put that into account as a comparison.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. So thank you for the negotiations update. As we continue on, we have a first read of a policy update JL, Student Safety Welfare. And for this, General Counsel Jill Murray Grady, working with the policy subcommittee of Kathy Shields and Anping Shen. They're available for any questions, and Jill's coming up to briefly walk us through that.
Good evening. Good evening. This is pretty straightforward and fairly limited. The wellness policy was just updated to include one paragraph at the end addressing food deliveries to students during school hours and after school activities on school grounds and school buildings, essentially prohibiting them largely because of safety concerns of people going in and out of the buildings unnecessarily. I don't really have a lot more to say. If people have questions, the superintendent has some experience with this type of policy, so I'm sure she's happy to answer questions as well.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Emily.
It makes sense. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I know that South has a table outside the entrance, so people don't go in and they just drop it. So I'm just stating that there's some thought was given to that. I'm not suggesting that we're not going to change this. I find it interesting that schools and kids are trying to get around it and make it safer. So,
right. But if you want any type of uniformity, it's got to start from the top.
Totally agree with you. Not disagreeing with whether or not we should be supporting this. It's just interesting that different schools are doing different things.
Thanks, Emily. Go ahead, Anna.
So just the way this operationalizes, the tables there, but there as many deliveries go to like back doors and side doors and all the things. So it's a little bit cleaner just to say, none. And also even on campus there, strangers coming up into that area, it's just a real liability for us if If I were a bad guy in the world, I might consider being a DoorDash person to try to get access to the people on the campus and the doors. And we are having a bunch of issues with doors being propped, students waiting inappropriately outside of the high school. And we're really trying to close down the campus more. It's hard to do. Long-standing history of open campus. That's hard when we have so many potential safety issues.
That totally makes sense, and I am 100% behind it.
Any other questions? You can always follow up. Yes, Tamika.
I have a question along similar lines as Emily. And mine, I think it's good to have a policy. I think there needs to be work on the back end. Sorry to pop my peas. The back end to make sure that we're not creating a separate issue where now we have students meeting potentially bad agents, as you said, Anna, at some location off-site. So we don't want to create a problem by fixing a problem. And so I think the school-based teams working with you and your administrative superintendents will have to kind of look at this very top-down, sideways, and making sure that you've thought about alternatives, and whether that alternative is addressing student behavior in the first place, that's valid too. But again, the policy is good to have. We just need to make sure that we're thinking about how we implement it in a way that doesn't create issues.
The enforcement and implementation will have to be worked out in line with the policy.
Right. I would also say that it, helps to comply with our wellness policy. So we have to knock ourselves out to offer particularly healthy meals that comply with all of this. And then Chick-fil-A can get delivered to the door, right? So it's just a really odd situation to be contending with.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I lost my place momentarily. Next, we have, we should be joined by Amy Mistro, our Director of Business Operations. There she is. Amy will lead us through a discussion of the next two topics on our agenda, first of which is a discussion followed by a vote. Do not let me forget the vote part. On a 5-year contract request for a food service vendor. Welcome, Amy. Hey, Stephen, can we move the, and if you can't, that's okay, but we can't quite see Amy right now because of the bar. Oh, that helps.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am here with you tonight requesting a non-standard contract term for a 5-year contract for the food service management contract. The standard contract term is 3 years. We are allowed with approval by the designating board to request 5 years due to the complexity of the RFP process and food service operations. We are requesting the additional 2 years. If the school committee were to approve this, we would then go to city council to request their approval as well. This is required as part of the RFP process.
Any questions or comments for Amy? Go ahead, Paul.
You want to vote on this?
Yes, if there are any questions or comments first. But go ahead, Chris. Question or comment?
Question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Amy. Thank you. Just curious, is this, sort of the way the industry's moving? Is this becoming more standard? And just so I understand it, the 5-year contract is really, it's a 1-year contract with 4 annual renewal options.
Yes, that's a great distinction, Chris. It is a really a 1 year with 4 additional years that can be approved as amendments to the contract should the district not be satisfied with the performance of the food service management company. We could certainly go out to bid sooner. We could certainly go out to bid after a year, assuming that there is a positive relationship and we are satisfied with the operations. We could continue on up to the 5 years. This is also, Chris, to answer your other question, this is pretty much standard practice to do 5 years. It's how Newton has been operating since we have been in business with food service management companies.
Sure, of course.
So just one follow-up on the in terms of just from a contract structure perspective, I assume our current contract is not structured this way with the, or is it with a, it's effectively a 1 year with 4 extensions?
It is.
It is structured.
We're
that
in
way.
year 5 of 5 right now.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was structurally the same thing though. Okay. Thank
We
you.
are asking for a continuation of past practice.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Mayor Fuller.
I think it's noted on the document. I just want to remind everybody, any contract that is signed that's more than 3 years has to go through the city council. I do not think we will have any trouble having the city councilors approve this, but goes to finance and then on to the full city council.
Thank you for that information. And yes, it is noted in the memo. Go ahead, Paul.
I'd like to move approval of the request for the 5-year food service contract as outlined in the memo dated December 18th to the school committee.
Lovely. We have a motion. Is there a second? Go ahead, On Ping.
Second.
Thank you, On Ping. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ward 1 is not present. Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4 is a yes. Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 8 is not present, and Mayor Fuller.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. That motion passes unanimously. Amy also has terrific news to share regarding a diversity grant update. So Amy, take it away.
Thank you. I would like to defer to the superintendent if she would like to take this one.
Well, in a collaborative effort between Amy and our team, Human Resources, DEI, this grant helps to move forward the strategy of teacher diversification and retention of diverse staff members in the district. There's many programs and portions of it. Some of it are detailed here, but I just want to take this opportunity to just thank Amy again publicly. Luckily, she works on the same high octane lifestyle that I do with pushing these things forward. And it's just really great to have a grant writing arm that really gets the school system, the policy end, and can help listen to our educators and accelerate these programs for them. So Amy, anything you want to add there?
I would just add, thank you for that, Anna. That was very nice. I would just like to add that a difference in this grant this year was that DESE allowed for district initiatives in working with both Kathy Lopes in our DEI office and Giovanni Santa, who had just joined the district at this time. We were able to develop a full menu of district initiatives. The cap was 75,000, which is where we will deploy most of the funding. The 82,000 that we received will be used to help support the district initiatives that they had already been working on and will be able to continue to elevate with this additional funding.
Any questions for Amy about the diversity grant? Hearing none, seeing none, I will call for a motion to approve the grants in one moment. But first, just want to thank you, Amy, for all of your diligent work. It's lovely to have so many grants come before us, and I know a lot of that can be attributed to you and your scraping the sources for funds for the Newton Public Schools. So we very much appreciate that. With that, is there a motion to accept the funds as detailed in the memo for the diversity grant? Go ahead, Kathy.
I move that we accept the funds as detailed in the memo before us.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ward 1, not present. Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4? Yes. Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 8 is not present, and Mayor Fuller.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we turn now to Superintendent Nolan for a budget calendar update. And Liam Hurley, our Chief Administrative Assistant.
This is a duet.
I always mess up titles. Apologies. Go ahead, Liam.
So this is a calendar I think you've seen in the past. I think Dr. Nolan has actually beefed this up a little bit. The nice part with working with you folks and with a new incoming superintendent. I think budget's on our mind all year long. So this kind of just sets forth kind of the high level process and timeline of what we're doing. A lot of this is actually kind of back of house that we're doing internally with my team and with the principals, working with central staff. There's particularly, and just, you know, I do think there's some flexibility in some of these dates. So if things come up or need to change, that actually happens. I think, you know, there's a pretty public process really starting kind of kicking off in March, but it's also important to note the demographic report that we'll get from McKibben, Dr. Hoag's report on enrollment that really kind of forms also some of our decisions, and then really kind of the public process that we have, and you know, starting with our first kind of coming out with our budget, but we've already been talking about budget kind of internally with you folks, so this is going to be an exciting budget for us. But so what did I leave off here?
Just a few new additions, because you got the new girl here. We are going to have some principal workshops. We're going to start with the secondary principals and ask them to look at their achievement trend data for the current year to pitch us additions to their budget or revisions. Typically, there's been an allocation decided at the central office level, and of course, it's responsive to what's happening, but principals have shared the desire for a greater voice in that process. So we're going to give that a whirl. Also new in January, expressions of by the mayor and the city council to have collaborative budget workshops with the school committee so that we would be together discussing the priorities as we move forward. I think this is something that Mayor Fuller has done in the past, and there's a desire for that to continue. Also new, the annual report will become the completed section 1 of the budget book, so that we're sending home this sort of annual performance report so that folks can understand how did it go the previous year with the strategic investments that the district made in the school system while we're trying to pass the current budget. So we're trying to move towards that process now. So it'll get stronger each year that we do that. And we're certainly looking for all the great places to send that annual performance report. Will we link it to maybe correspondence that the mayor puts out? Where will we post it? Do we send something, you know, in an electric bill reminding people to check the website or something like that? And then finally, new, lots of senior citizens have reached out asking for a little bit of special attention. I spent some quality time at the senior center this summer, and folks just having a genuine desire to know what is going on in schools and how does that impact the budget, and just a genuine desire for some Q&A at the senior center or other locations where folks can ask the questions that they want. So Liam and I are good for that roadshow. So we're gonna try to do that. So those are just the changes. Already a very strong and transparent timeline, and we just want you to know when it's coming.
Great. And go ahead, Paul.
Apologies for not bringing this up for our norms with the question, but I noticed that the dates for the school committee meetings and the public hearing have changed from what's in our posted calendar.
Oh.
And I didn't know.
I will take a look at that.
Didn't know why that was. I just want to have a sense of.
I don't know. I don't think we changed it, did we, Liam? So it might be just a weird thing.
Maybe I was looking at the wrong year's calendar.
There was an original school committee document, just the notes of that. But
on the website where it lists.
You do? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I would just say last year we had we really extended the budget process, I think, with the override process as well. So this was kind of a more typical time frame. Again, things can change, but that if you look back, this is an earlier vote than kind of last year's process.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Good question. Any other questions or comments on the budget calendar? Go ahead, Emily.
So we had done this previously, and I just want to put it out there again, which is just to have a placeholder in case we do need an extra meeting. I think that would be good, since things are not as drawn out, so to speak, as they were last year. And I know that things are a little more compressed now, but I think it would behoove us to just have a placeholder.
So I think that's definitely something for incoming school committee leadership to ensure it happens. But it's a darn good idea, perhaps even 2 placeholder meetings, just you never know what comes up. Let's see, any other questions and or comments? Nope. Okay, we can move right along. Once again, the next item in our packet is a memo from Superintendent Nolan detailing the plan for addressing non-aligned salaries, given that we are actively negotiating with our unions. Anna?
So again, I'm going to hand it over to Liam Hurley, our CFO, just to talk about the traditional non-aligned activities at this time of year and why we're making a change from that.
Thanks. So yeah, typically at this time of year, we have requested a increase for what's called our non-aligned staff. So these are some of the small percentage of staff that are not part of a bargaining unit. I think the memo just kind of details basically the fact that we do not, so we're in contract negotiations with all our bargaining units. And I think the feeling was until those contracts are executed, we would wait on any making it a recommendation to school committee, at which point we would come back to you folks, make a recommendation, likely retroactive to January 1st, 2024. So no real action at this point, but just an update on what that status would be for non-aligned.
Thank you for that update. Questions? Go ahead on Ping.
I know probably I should have known the answer. Now looking at the list, we have quite the different numbers of the positions. So talking about the unit A, B, C, how do we align these folks with the COLAs, particularly Kathy just shared with us. So I assume that these folks, starting from superintendent to the specialists, are not aligned with only one union.
That's correct. So
Group.
these are actually, no one is a part of a union. This group of people is, so they're not aligned. They're not a union, part of a union membership. For the most part, no non-aligned staff have any steps. So most of our unions have steps plus a COLA. The recommendation when we would make one would typically be just for a COLA amount or an increase to their current salary. So there's no stepping really for non-aligned staff. Principals do have their own salary grid, if you will. They have a step, but other non-aligned staff do not have that. So it's difficult to compare really to any of the bargaining units. It's kind of a different salary structure.
Here, assuming that the COLAs will be different, 2.75, 2.5, first year, second year, same kind of idea, first year, second year, third year, or just cross-board, mostly with one.
Jump on in, Anna.
Yeah, I just want to say that until we know what the units are going to have, it's hard to propose something. And we're a school system, so we need to work as a unit. It would be wrong for us to pull out that number without knowing where our units are. So we're just going to wait, and then we would base a reasonable cost of living increase for non-aligned staff based on whatever happens with our units.
Okay, just to clarify, I'm not asking for specific COLA and percentage. Of course, we don't know, but eventually the concept is, so basically we'll come up with some kind of a COLA percentage and apply to all these folks, or even among these non-aligned staff, there might be different groups. It's just for me to understand a little bit better.
It's typically the same percentage for the whole group, right?
It's typically one percentage that we've come forward to the school committee with to ask, and so people's basically their current salary would be increased as of January 1st by whatever approved amount been given by school committee.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, on Ping. Others? Okay, and we can move on to our next item, which is the Newton Public Schools use of $6.2 million from the City of Newton free cash. Our thanks right off the gate to Mayor Fuller for her partnership in authorizing the funding to move forward projects which will improve the working conditions for our staff, the learning environments and tools for our students. Liam Hurley, Assistant Superintendent, Chief Financial and Administrative Officer. See, I have to write it down to remember the whole thing. Will walk us through this as well.
Sure. So this memo details to you folks the use of $6.2 million, and the mayor can kind of clarify us if I'm off on this. This will become certified free cash. I think at this point it may not technically be free cash. Mayor, go ahead.
I'll jump in.
Yes.
Free cash has already been certified, and please know the amount of funding for the Newton Public Schools is 8.6 million, of which 2.4 million has already been authorized for the Newton North High School synthetic turf. So the full amount is 8.6 million, and I think we may want to note that going forward. It's what the remainder of the funding is for. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification. So of the remainder of the 8.6, the 6.2 remaining, a lot of this, again, I think one of the keys that we have talked to you folks about is kind of use of one-time money, and free cash is one-time money. So this is money, a lot of this money is going into our facilities and operations. Some of these items you've heard of, new chiller at Building H, where we currently rent a large, almost truck-sized chiller there. You've heard about the air handling unit at the Newton North Pool. That's really a need. There's a number of toilet room upgrades. These will both get cosmetic and actually accessibility upgrades, which is really needed, particularly at a number of our elementary schools. We've got some PA public announcement systems at Bigelow and Brown that really are not functioning like they should be, and really a safety issue for us. Some roof systems, and then we've got some paving areas, particularly at Brown, that we'd like to address. That's an area that our vans, and we even have staff parking that would really address kind of, it's really kind of a mud pit in the back of that building that would really help. And then last but not least, we've also have an investment of $925,000 in some curriculum materials. I know Renee and Dr. Nolan are super excited about that. So that's fantastic news to continue. As you know, we had a big infusion from the city as well with a large curriculum literacy project that we've got going. So this is totaling the 6.2 in addition to the funding that the mayor talked about for the turf fields. So this was the use of that funding, just coming to you, letting you know that I think this needs to go to the city council, but it's going to be real nice improvements for our schools and, help our staff and our students in these schools that, aging facilities. We did have some issues today with the flooding, this amount of water. Some of these address some of those types of issues that we continue to see.
Thank you. Questions and or comments for Liam? Go ahead, Paul.
Actually, not for Liam, but for Mayor Fuller to express my appreciation for this. And I'm glad you mentioned the field, because those fields have a useful life. And when they get to the end of the useful life, they're actually dangerous. Kids and referees, of which I'm one, can get hurt running on those fields when the turf starts to wear out. So I'm really pleased to see that at that level. And also, Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate your point, which is that these items are important for the quality of life for our students and faculty and other staff in these buildings. It's really great that these funds are available to help us catch up and get ahead on those expenses. So thank you.
Well put. Go ahead, Chris.
Just one quick question. Do you have a sense of timing on when this will actually be deployed? I know it's difficult finding contractors, et cetera, right now. When we actually get to realize the benefits of the improvements?
So we actually even put this in the memo. We said that we would be giving the school committee an update. The timing on some of these, there's some long lead times on some of these items, and some of these are complex. So for example, the Newton North Pool, that's actually inside the building above the pool deck itself. We'll actually need to close the pool. We need to go out for procurement. We need to order, strategize about the timing. So we will be giving updates and facility memos as we go along. We can have a running tally of where these things stand. Some of these items could take quite some time. Some of these could be a year and a half to actually finally fully install and implement and have it up and running. There was a part for Lincoln Elliott, some kind of the controller parts. They're letting the team know it's going to take almost a year to have some of these things arrive. So there's still some long lead times. We're certainly not what we experienced during COVID, but there's still some long lead times, and there's certainly planning and there's certainly a procurement process that we need to go through and making sure this all happens smoothly.
Okay, thanks. That incremental color is what I was looking for. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Emily, and then on Ping.
So I also just wanted to elevate what you had said as part of this, which is the importance of the accessibility improvements that will be going on, because I think that's exceptionally important. I'm very happy to see that Williams Playground is on this list, as well as a bunch of other projects that I know are going to improve the accessibility of our school buildings. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. On Ping?
Yes, I like to echo that we're so happy to have the money, even though these projects seems not earth-shaking projects, but hey, half of them are toilets, and kids use it every day, and make them a little bit better. I think go a long way. And now, I just occurred to me that a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Allen and I and Emily, we visited the Underwood School, and I recall the custodian said the ceiling was leaking badly after some storm, and he pointed out those places. And I'm just wondering, this is not on the list, so I hope you guys haven't overlooked that.
That would be part of routine, repair and maintenance. They've actually have done a section at the Underwood roof, but
Yeah.
it continues to be but that was not kind of the major. We were looking for kind of major funding items for these buckets here. So that's what that was on there.
Okay.
That would be certainly something we're trying to address all the roofs. Anytime we've got any leak, we've got to try to address it. Really, typically it's kind of a patch, having a company come out and try to basically fix any roof, damage we have.
I'm sure you guys will take care of that, because when he described the situation, we felt awful.
Yeah.
I mean, the water everywhere, and he had to clean and all that. And I'm sure all those old buildings, 100 years old buildings, might have a lot of things come up. And, your list probably developed a couple of months ago, but hey, after winter, more things will come up. Really appreciate this project, and give a shout out to David Stickney's team, because they'll make them a little bit hardworking to take care of those things. Again, they're happy for this money from the city hall. Thanks.
Thank you, On Ping. Mayor Fuller?
A couple things, if I may. Earlier in public comment or sometimes by email, we get questions about one-time funds. I'd just like to clarify, there's really useful explanations why free cash happened to be bigger this year. They're unpredictable events. When we get one-time unusual funds, I'm always in close conversation with the superintendent, with Liam and David Stickney about the one-time types of projects that can be helpful to the Newton Public Schools. And the good news is when we have these unusual funds, we reinvest them in thoughtful and good ways. And I take my lead from the NPS team about what to invest the funds in. Please know that free cash does require city council approval. So we will bring this forward to the city council along with some city needs for one-time funding. And we'll do that with all deliberate speed and work closely with Liam and the superintendent about exactly which items when. For example, for those of you being sworn in on January 1st, that's actually a city council meeting. I know we're docketing the air handling unit over at the Newton North Pool, because we really need to get that moving along ASAP. So, and we'll figure out with your help which other ones we docket on which dates, and look forward to that. And I'll also just mention again, overlay surplus. It was a weird confluence of events with an Eversource settlement. Again, when that type of weird one-time funding comes in, I immediately look to my partners on the Newton Public Schools and say, so let's figure out what your needs are. And we're prioritizing the Newton Public Schools with 70% of the overlay surplus going towards the Newton Public Schools. So it's not like these free cash funds or overlay surplus are just hanging around doing nothing and are available for other uses. We put one-time funds directly to use for important one-time initiatives. And I'm excited to be able to support our students and our teachers with this funding.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. Any other comments or questions before we say farewell to Liam? Thank you, Liam. Appreciate it. And finally tonight, on the topic of farewell, we actually have some farewell remarks for two school committee members who will no longer be with us in the same way. Going forward into 2024. First of which is Kathy Shields. Kathy has been a member of the Newton School Committee for 3 terms. That's a combined 6 years. In that time, she has been a dedicated liaison to the Youth Commission, Forge, the Equity Committee, among other assignments and working groups. She has served with distinction as our vice chair for the past 2 years and has shouldered a good portion of the load during unprecedentedly busy times. She has provided unflagging support to me personally as chair. She has been extremely generous with her time, despite having a very demanding day job, and much of her time on the school committee has been devoted to negotiations. She has assisted with our collective bargaining process as a member of our negotiating and grievance teams with the NTA, the custodians, and NISA. She is fair, she is wise, she is smart as a whip. You can always count on her to have a thoughtful, efficient, and many have said elegant way to go through or move through any challenge or strategy that we need. To say that I will miss having her at my right hand, left, is an understatement. And with that, I'll invite my colleagues to bid a fond farewell or a thank you to Kathy before we turn to our next departing member. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, Tamika, I think you've said it very nicely, and I would just like to add one thing, which I've said to Kathy from time to time, is that, in my opinion, although we're all equals here on this committee, she's served as the glue that's held us together. And she's done it by example, by listening well, by being adaptable to the situations that arise, that by being respectful to all, and by embodying the norms that we've adopted here. In addition, I would just reiterate that she has a way of turning a phrase in difficult meetings that's really quite elegant and eloquent. And there have been times I've just sat there and watched and listened and in admiration for the manner in which she's conducted herself. So we'll miss you, Kathy.
Thank you, Paul. Emily?
I don't even know where to start. Seriously, I don't. Kathy, I'm going to miss you. I think we're all going to miss you tremendously for all of the reasons that have already been stated. And I also feel like the people who were here during the pandemic as school committee members, we formed sort of a unique and weird bond through trial by fire. And whether or not you agreed or disagreed with what was going on or how things were being handled, we were a really cohesive unit. And I learned so much from you during that time period also. And I just want to say thank you tremendously for the amount of time and passion that you have dedicated to your position. And I also want to celebrate you as a mom. You're just an amazing mom. Your girls are amazing. And that's a testament to you as a human being also. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you, Emily. Shall we keep going along the line? Mayor Fuller?
I would agree and lift up everything that has been said. Perhaps I'll just add one more trait on top of all the well-earned comments so far. You have strength and courage. In your quiet voice, you think about and stand up for true north. I've seen it in the rough going we sometimes had in the equity work, where even some of your neighbors and fellow parents in your particular school had deep concerns about the direction that you thought we should go. And that's hard to do. And you did it gracefully and with courage and with strength. You're an extraordinary person. We've been blessed to have you for 6 years on the school committee. We're really lucky that you gave so much and did so well. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. How about we head down to the end? Chris?
Sure. So we have certainly both agreed and disagreed on various occasions, but I will say I respect that you always showed up prepared, which made it easier when we agreed. You know, we all of us here have our own strengths and weaknesses, and you know, I think if there's anything you've done in the time here and the time that we've worked together, certainly, you know, your role in, you know, partly managing this negotiations process, which is obviously extraordinarily difficult, has been, you know, your sort of best moments, in my opinion. And I know that's, you know, it's sort of a tough thing to say as, you know, people are sitting up here and yelling at us. But, you know, again, the sort of prepared matter of fact approach of we are all trying to do the best things for our kids, that comes through. And so you know, I want to thank you for sort of taking on that responsibility, which I know sucks.
Well put. Thank you, Chris. Go ahead, Ping.
Thank you. Well, I think most of you covered what I wanted to say, and Paul talked about professional, and Amy talking about in person, and then Mayor talking about the you know, calm voice, which is very important. And Kathy, I remember we went to the early stage of the equity issue, and we heard some, you know, different opinions, and I thought, you know, you were at that time you were the school committee liaison to the equity group, and it was not easy, and that was a learning process for me. And also, I totally agree that I think I talked to you a couple of times with your professional work and as mom, and I don't know how you know, handle all these stuff, and that was very difficult. And also, we worked on the policy subcommittee. I learned a lot from you, and certainly your expertise, well appreciated, more than you probably, you know, imagined. And lastly, I would say, you know, as the contract negotiation committee, and that was a very difficult job. And again, you know, you managed very well, you did well, and communicate to us and to the public. So really appreciate that. I certainly will miss you, and I guess we will still see each other, and probably I have a question for you. So thank you again for your wonderful and a very strong commitment to our school committee work and to community. Thank you.
Thank you, An Ping.
Well, I am a professional consumer of board members, so I can say to you that an attorney's mind, a mother's heart, and a neighborly hand are the best combination. And I think that I've seen that in the short time that we have been together. So it's not easy to be a board member. It's really, really hard. So thank you for the service, and I certainly will miss you.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks, everybody. I hope that filled you with all the feels and we and we definitely will miss you. That's clear. Let's turn now to our member from Ward 8, who is not with us tonight, but whose presence we have benefited from for the past 2 years, Cove Davis. Cove has been a wonderful addition to the committee. Her perspective as an educator has been instrumental through our discussions and our decisions. And personally, I will always be grateful for her for agreeing to help screen, interview, and recommend candidates for our interim superintendent position this past year. So with that, let's do we'll go reverse order this time, starting with An Ping and then Chris.
Certainly, Cove. I don't know where you are, but I was very happy to, as Tamika mentioned, that to work together as the interim superintendent search committee or interview committee, but was very impressive work. And certainly, I do not know many superintendents, but when she threw out those names, I was very impressed. And that was very critical to have those names and to have those people, recruit those people. And I consider that as one of the fine moments for me as school committee to hire Cassie Smith. And I told her that we were lucky to have her and she was wonderful, interim superintendent. So again, I'd like to give a shout out to Cove and thank her. And also wonderful, when I talk to her in person, I always appreciate her professional, educational input. And for example, we talked about the equity and excellence, and she gave me some very, very good, thoughtful input for me to understand this issue better, because she worked in the trench, in the front line. I joked I work in the headquarters, as office staff. We can talk all wonderful things, but she's doing the real work. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, An Ping. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I am going to miss Cove tremendously, as I think she was sort of the person I went to the most, in part because she has that educational experience, and she's, in the district she's worked in, kind of on Ping's point, she's seen the real world. And it was such a unique and meaningful perspective to all our discussions, but it was also the person you could call after the meeting being like, I didn't really understand what they were saying. Can you help me? So she is, I am going to miss her a ton, as, she was, I think, my greatest collaborator over the last 2 years. So I wish her the best.
Thanks, Chris. Paul?
Cove has incredible depth of knowledge, experience, and character. As Chris was just suggesting, her work in some of the urban areas of Boston, I think it was Everett, Chelsea, I forget which other towns, Revere, districts that have real challenges. And I would hear about her work from colleagues in the field. She was highly valued there. The fact that she chose to join us was a bit of a sacrifice in terms of her own family time and life. And I appreciate that she was willing to do that. And to your point earlier about the recruitment of our interim superintendent, This was not just dialing for dollars around to see who might be interested. This was a sales job. If we go back to that period, it was not an easy time to persuade highly competent people to step in on an interim basis. First of all, an interim superintendent's job is hard in itself just because of the structure of the situation. But the Newton schools have been through a lot right before that, and to be willing to take that on, to recruit someone, to persuade someone to do it was a real task. So we owe her a lot.
Thank you, Paul. Emily?
So everyone else already said what I wanted to say. So it's been a pleasure serving with Cove. I think that, as everyone has said, her perspective has been invaluable to us as a committee. And her unique perspective, I think, has really enriched our conversations and our decisions that we've made over time. I'm sad that I didn't get to work with her more closely over the last 2 years. I wish that I had had that opportunity to do so. But I wish her the best of luck going forward in her future endeavors. And we are really going to miss her.
Thanks, Sam. Go ahead, Mayor Fuller.
Agree with everything that has been said. I'll add only that she is exquisite. Cove has exquisite judgment and maturity that she brought to all the discussions we had, and continuously grounded our discussions and decision making on what happens in the classroom for our students and for the teachers and educators who are the key resource in our ecosystem. I'm so pleased that the voters of Newton and perhaps some persuasion by Kathy Shields that in Ward 7, we're blessed to have another educator in Amy Davenport coming on the school committee. And boy, that's lucky that the baton is going from one educator to another. We are very lucky that people like that contribute so much time to help all of us.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. Kathy?
I think all of my colleagues have said what I was planning to say. I have tremendously enjoyed getting to know Cove as a person. She is wonderful to spend time with, and her educational experience and knowledge and perspective have been really valuable for this committee. I really also appreciate the sort of process improvement ideas she brought as a new school committee member, particularly. I remember that first walk you and I talked with her. And we had a lot of discussions about how to improve the clarity and the level of discussion of the presentations we got from staff. And she has just been a wonderful member of the committee over the last couple of years. I am glad that we will have a new educator, but I think having her educator's perspective was very important, particularly when it came to budget time, because she asked some very insightful questions and had very, very real world contributions to make to the dialogue that we all had about what was important when it came to making difficult decisions between priorities. And plus, she's a wonderful person, and I'm glad that I've gotten to know her over the last 2 years.
Thanks, Kathy. Anna? close us out.
Cove, I'm sure I will see you in the business because we move in the same circles. And I have also come to know her work prior to knowing her. So huge contributions here. And so it's not farewell for us. I'll see her around the Commonwealth. But thank you. I can't imagine in our line of work also taking on school committee at the end of your workday. So I think it's just an incredible commitment that she's made. And I thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Anna. All right, everyone. I appreciate that. I think it's important to acknowledge the contributions of the folks who will no longer be with us. That sounds morbid, but you know what I mean. So with that, we have concluded the posted business for tonight's meeting. Our next meeting will be on Monday, January 8th, 2024. In addition to greeting the new year, we will also be greeting the school committee's new leadership team of Chris Bresky and Emily Prenner, as well as two new members, Amy Davenport and Barry Bernstein. It has been a Greenstein. Ugh. Apologies for that, Barry. You will get to know me very well. It has been a heck of a ride and an immense privilege leading this committee through what has to be the most tumultuous period in many generations. I led this committee through 3 superintendents, built the process from the ground up for hiring 2 of them, led the committee through an override with 2 successes and 1 failure, which we need not go into too much further. Led the committee through 2 incredibly difficult budget deficit years, through a public hearing that filled to capacity our Newton North cafeteria, through negotiating successor contracts with all 3 of our unions, a job which is yet unfinished. But I am incredibly proud of the job that I have done as chair of this committee. And on January 8th, when I move over a couple of seats, I will continue to do an excellent job on behalf of the students and the educators of this district. And I will do so very much in support of and with the collaboration of my colleagues on the school committee. So thank you for indulging me as I give myself a well-deserved, in my opinion, pat on the back for the past 2 years of work as I pass the baton to our next chair. I hope everyone has a happy holiday break and a wonderful restorative new year. Thank you to our central staff and a big thanks to everyone who attended tonight's meeting. We very much appreciate it. Our meeting is now adjourned.
Record.